So a few years ago, I read this fascinating little book called The Butterfly Effect by Andy Andrews, where he details this powerful principle of what can happen by small steps in one place can make changes on the whole other side of the globe. And he tells this powerful story of Joshua Chamberlain. It was August of 1862. Joshua Chamberlain was a 32-year-old school teacher, like many of you. The Civil War had broken out and he wanted to be of service for his country, so he presented himself to the governor and said, "Could I be of service?" And they said, "Yes, you may. You're an educated person. You don't have tutelage in the arts of war, but we can help you with that." And they commissioned him as a lieutenant colonel in the Union Army. And he was given a regiment from Maine, 300 men. So Joshua Chamberlain shows up in preparation for one of the greatest battles of the Civil War. And here's what I want you to understand. He was assigned the left westernmost flank. He had 300 men to start at the beginning of that battle, at the Battle of Round Top Hill. The Confederate Army was coming up to them, waves and waves of attacks mercilessly, so that by the end of a few of these attacks, they only had 80 men left. Now, here's what I need you to understand. That he was positioned in such a place, and the generals had told me, here is your ultimate assignment. You've got to hold this ground, come hell or high water. You cannot move from this position, because if you give up this position, they are going to be able to overrun the entire army, and it could have changed the entire course of history. This is the Battle of Gettysburg. So here they are. I mean, what do? You started with 300 men. Now you've only got 80 men left. And they said, "Sir, we've got some terrible news. We only have a little bit of ammunition left among us." What do? What do? Here's what you do. You follow the orders of your commanding officer. Period. Because listen, Lieutenant Colonel Chamberlain may not have had the full idea, if he were to zoom out, what the plans and purposes are of the general. But he knew he was to be obedient in this one spot. He said, no matter what, come what may, no matter what comes up that hill, you cannot give up this spot. So can you imagine what his men were thinking in that moment when he weighs his option? He understands what needs to be done. He says 2 words: fix bayonets. They're not abandoning ship. They're not running. He says, I would rather die with my men being obedient than live but be disobedient. So you know what they did? The odds were not good, by the way. It was the 15th Regiment of Alabama, 400 fresh men, 1 to 5, 80 haggard, tired men. Colonel Chamberlain said, fix bayonets. And the fascinating part of this story is I love that he didn't lead from behind. He said, all right, let's blow the trumpet. Let's charge downhill. Swords or bayonets towards the enemy. And he, comfortable behind the battle line somewhere. Nah. He led. He jumped out running, not knowing what was going to happen in his own life. But they knew they cannot give up their spot. And guess what? They won. Historians agree, listen, that one act of courage turned the tide of the battle of Gettysburg. Gettysburg turned the tide of the Civil War, and the Civil War preserved the Union. And for his bravery, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. Yeah. By the way, he stayed in the fight for the remainder of the Civil War, ended up achieving the rank of Brigadier General. Listen, all because a school teacher took one obedient, courageous step at the right moment. I'm telling you, this wasn't just about a moment in history. This was a huge ripple unleashed through a single act of courage.